Speaking of money, let's talk about Prince Harry briefly. It's cost him some money today in the court. I always like to hear Prince Harry having to pay out to newspapers £48,000.
This is actually not the worst part of his day either, because Bob Seeley, the MP for Isle of Wight, laid down his bill today.
Oh, did he?
That meant that, his bill was taken to Parliament. I don't know the date that it's being debated, where Parliament could have the opportunity to strip royals of their titles to avoid situations like this, where it's just taking over the whole narrative for years on end. It won't end, and we're kind of imprisoning each other at that point.
Well, I mean, he's got so many court cases going on against the government now, doesn't he? I mean, at one point, I think earlier this year, he had 6 different cases going on in the High Court on the same day. And this is one he's got going on against Associated Newspapers, Publishers and Daily Mail. It's a libel case, which I think he's lost, basically. But it's not the end of the case, because there's other bits of it that carry on. But he must be spending a fortune on lawyers as well. What's wrong with him?
Well, he'll have to sell some more secrets about his own family to pay for it all.
I don't think he's got any left.
But,
I mean, give them to Omid Scobie and he can just print any old rubbish and then rewrite it and go, oh, sorry, this is the second version, which hasn't got the lies in.
I wish my sister's secrets were worth that much money.
Well, I mean, you know, listen, we've all got secrets I'm sure we could sell, but I'm not sure how much we get for them. Let's talk about a boat that was pictured. This is the West Ham supporters' boat, I think. I don't know if we've got some footage of that, have we? Which did not go terribly well. The ship hits the fans, is what it says here. This is it's one of these party boats, I think. They're going from point A to point B, and they managed to crash it into the bridge, which is not the greatest idea you've ever seen. Trying to turn a thing like that around. There you go. There's nothing worse than being on a boat when the person driving it doesn't know what they're doing.
Do you know what they need? They need like a sea monster to rise like Godzilla from the depths and lift them over the bridge, don't they, Mike?
Well,
might be one.
I don't sense that you're taking that story entirely seriously. You know.
Maybe I'm not taking this story that seriously either.
Well, let's talk about the COVID inquiry then, because I know you want to. Rishi Sunak was there today. He's the first person so far that's appeared to say that actually we're sorry not just to the people who had lost loved ones due to COVID, but actually we're going to say sorry to the people who were injured or damaged in some way by the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 3 things that have gone quite well for Rishi Sunak today. First of all, like I say, he's the first official to apologise for people suffering from the effects of lockdown, not just the people that died from COVID. And of course, this is an area that the inquiry is totally neglecting to cover at all. The harms of lockdown, the cost-benefit of lockdown, whether lockdown hurt people and didn't work.
Yes.
So, you know, he's just touched on that. That's one thing. Secondly, it turns out that he didn't commit too much into WhatsApp, which is correct, ministerial. You know, he's to be commended for, first of all,
Isabel Oakeshott actually confirmed that most of the WhatsApps that she'd found that he'd written weren't very interesting. So, in fact, he's not one of those that's going around insulting people.
That's interesting.
You know, that he's actually, she said she actually went along with what he said, because the ones that she's seen were pretty bland.
And, of course, it's not how ministerial business should be done, as well as, you know, it's just silly to commit all these pejoratives and you know, cackling at people in budget hotels into WhatsApp like they did.
Yeah.
But the third thing is, you know, he's been slated a lot for Eat Out to Help Out. And I just have to say that I'm just reaching boiling point with this KC now. He just keeps asking the wrong questions.
Yeah.
Why are we still talking about whether Eat Out to Help Out was a bad idea? Because you just need to look at infections and deaths.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. It didn't do any harm at all. It was actually quite a sensible policy to encourage people back into the high street and into the world. It had no real world...
And it's a very tiny, tiny part of the things that happened over that 2-year period, right?
No real world costs at all. And, you know, on this KC, there's still...
He's very smug, isn't he?
He's very smug. He's been giving a very, very soft line of questioning to a lot of the experts, and he's just not interrogating things properly because he's coming from such a place of presumption. You know, they're talking about the hospitalisation data, and he still hasn't got to the bottom of something that some of us knew in 2021, which is that hospitalisation data included people that went to hospital with COVID, people that caught COVID in hospital because they're like mini cities of infection.
People are still doing that, by the way.
Of course, and people that would have had erroneous false positives. You know, it was a big number. It included a lot of different people. He hasn't worked out some of the very basics of this kind of data analysis. The whole inquiry is doomed, but Rishi's done quite well today.
we've discussed this before, but I think the numbers are all on one side, and that is very suspicious to me. The government must have had an estimate of how many people lockdown was going to kill because they missed cancer appointments or whatever it might be.
Because we know they had conversations about it.
Of course, they must have done.
I can help you with that right now. I put it in my book, A State of Fear. I spoke to a disaster recovery planner who said that for every 1 death from COVID, in terms of body disposition and storage, they were planning for another 4 deaths caused by lockdown.
Right.
Because you would have deaths caused by problems with obstetrics, sepsis, delayed cancer treatment, domestic violence, all kinds of problems. So every 1 death of COVID equated to another 4 deaths caused by lockdowns in terms of the body disposition planning.
Yes. And so we will know in the next couple of years, and I've been told this by people who mark these things, that it will be at least 2 years before you know what the kind of excess deaths figure is for people who didn't die from COVID itself, but from something else.
I think Isabel Oakeshott a couple of weeks ago made the best point people had made at that point about this, is in 10 years' time, even possibly 5, we're not going to have Rishi, Boris and Hancock. Most of these questions and what we're asking about is redundant. It's not helping us for a future pandemic. It's not helping us decide how we handle any decision, apart from eat out to help out.
The only thing I'm learning is we should never hire this QKC ever again, because he's really, really not doing the right job. I don't often like to mock when there's something criminal going on, but Cardiff today cancelling its £800,000 bike hire scheme has made me smile. They've got this thing called NextBike, a bit like the Boris bikes here. But after more than 3,000 cycles have been stolen or vandalised over the last 2 years, they've had to knock it on the head. So down in Cardiff, they've obviously got the right idea about cycling. No thanks, I'm only going to cycle on a stolen bike.
Well, maybe they like cycling too much.
Transformed. I was walking around today thinking London has been transformed by cycling and Sadiq Khan, who's some kind of maniac.
But transformed, you don't mean transformed for the better, do you?
No, for the worse.
Absolutely.
You know, every time I see a cyclist getting on a bike and going down the street the wrong way or crossing, the street the wrong way, or just taking absolutely no notice of any traffic lights or any actual pedestrians or anything, it's now impossible to be anything in London unless you're a cyclist.
Yeah, and I also think that since cycling's been pushed so much, this is just my own opinion, I can't back it up with any evidence, but I think that cyclists have become really emboldened. They don't follow the rules. It's not that long ago that my sons did their bikeability, they used to call it at school. And there's a lot of rules, you're supposed to have lights on your bike. Yeah. You should wear a helmet.
Lights on your bike.
A lot of cyclists around the streets of London now don't have lights at night. They don't stop at traffic lights. And actually, when you're driving as a motorist, it's this uber responsibility to keep yourself and to keep everyone safe, and the cyclists are not helping.
They're not. And they're putting themselves in danger, because a lot of them don't have lights. A lot of them you can't see. They're wearing dark clothing. And, and they're doing really dangerous things. It really drives me insane. Ridiculous. But I'll cheer you up before the end of this, because we've got a picture of Carrie Johnson. I'm told this might be the new Johnson family Christmas picture, but I'm not sure that's right. That's Peppa Pig. Do you remember when he did that weird speech about Peppa Pig?
Peppa Pig World.
Peppa Pig World, where he went, where I've never been. We've got the clip as well. Let's have a listen to it then. Here she is, and here's Boris.
Who would have believed, Tony, that a pig that looks like a hairdryer, or possibly a sort of Picasso-like hairdryer, a pig that was rejected by the BBC, would now be exported to 180 countries with theme parks both in America and in China, as well as in the New Forest, and a business that's worth at least £6 billion to this country, £6 billion and counting. Now, I think that is pure genius, don't you, Peppa Pig? And no government in the world, no Whitehall civil servant would conceivably have come up with Peppa.
Now, that's just a reminder for those people who think that it'd be a good idea to get him back. That he went to that conference, that CBI conference, and clearly lost his notes and didn't know what he was supposed to be talking about. Although there are those who say he knows exactly what he's doing when he does that, and he was actually probably rehearsing just to make it look like he didn't know what he was doing.
Is he now an official Peppa Pig lobbyist? Is that on the register?
I mean, he may well be.
Right.
I don't know if he has to. He doesn't have to put anything on any register now, does he? All he has to do is sign on the dotted line.
Right. Because
he's no longer in Parliament, unless he wants to come back in. But we're going to come back with some more stories. You're watching The Independent Republic of Mike Graham.